Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So a little update on the XJS here. We are going to be attempting to repair the headliner. Remember, it was pretty much cracked right down the middle, specifically back here in the back. And so what we're going to do is we're going to lay some fiberglass in there. I figured probably 2 layers, and I'm just going to use the standard mat. It's not the woven backed or anything. It's just this just standard old fiberglass mat like you'd use on an airplane cowl or maybe your sailboat, something like that. Last time I've done this was on airplanes, so it's been 25 years. I remember the smell, and I remember how fun it was to try to get all the bubbles out. So we're working on a large area here. And I do have one of those metal rollers that'll be on the way here in just a couple of minutes. And we'll use that to kind of smooth it out. Hopefully all the fibers don't pull out. But here's what I'm going to be using. Back here I've got a gallon of acetone. And the reason for that is you don't want to use paint thinner. Acetone is specifically for epoxies and resins, okay, and vinyl stuff. And I'm using polyester laminating resin. I've got a gallon, and then you've got the hardener that came with it. Basically, I'm going to use a quart, one of these little quart cups that you can get probably at your local paint store or something like that. And up to the rim right there is 1 quart. So we'll fill that up with the resin, and then it'll take, I think it says, let's see, what's this say? Use 2 ounces per gallon. So here's 2 ounces for the whole thing. So that breaks down to, what is that, like 15, was that 15 milliliters, 15 cc's. So I've got a little syringe over there we'll use. So fill up the epoxy resin in there, and then the hardener, and then we'll stir it up. One thing I don't have laid over here is a stir stick. But you want to have a mask because those little fibers from the fiberglass will get all over. And then obviously some good gloves. I just use these ones you can get at Costco. You get like 100 in a box or whatever, impervious to oil and solvents. So, and then just a standard old chip brush. You can get one of those wooden ones, or you can get one of these. I like these a little bit better because there's a lot more fibers on them, or bristles, and you can kind of use it like this to mash down any folds or creases or anything like that. I've got to be careful because this thing, once we put our epoxy on there, it's going to get heavy, if you will. And so what I've got is a couple of boards, and then I got this old dustpan just kind of holding it up because I want to make sure that we retain that curvature, because it's a lot easier to put it in the car with a curve and then kind of put it down than to have it flat and try to, you want the center to be curved, more of an arch. And obviously, if you look at the end of it, that has to be arched as well, okay? So you may have noticed I got some aluminum foil down there, and that is a release, so the epoxy doesn't go through my little crack in the headliner and go down to the table, and then obviously epoxy my headliner to the table that I'm using. I've got a couple of wooden boards here, just some old leftover. I use them for painting, but they're just plywood. And I've got those up there bracing the headliner to kind of lift it up about, 3/4 of an inch or so. And then got it like that. So well ventilated out here. I'm going to kick the fan on over there. I've got drop cloths, and let me get a couple of things moved out of the way. I've already laid out and pre-cut my fiberglass mat here. I've got 2 layers ready to go. So we'll be able to spin that around and just lay it right on here. I'm gonna put 1 coat of epoxy on here, just a tack layer, and then I'll lay the first layer of the epoxy webbing down, or epoxy mat, fiberglass mat, and then we'll smooth it out. We'll start kind of in the center and go like this. And you'll see me do that. I'm gonna get you set up over here on the tripod, and then probably what we'll do is a time lapse and show you exactly what to do. I haven't done this in a long time, so if it turns into a nightmare, that's okay. We'll be able to actually make a new headliner. We'll just use the top of the car as a mold coat it with some aluminum foil, spray some WD-40, get some new fiberglass mat, and then use it that way. So I'm trying to save a little bit of money here on this original headliner. And as you can see, some of the edges here, where the little clip prong things in the inside of the car frame are kind of destroyed. So we'll fold that over and kind of reinforce those a little bit as we get towards the edge. The main process today is to just get the main slope portion and then leave the edges for later. We'll curve those around and then coat on the bottom. That two layers should be good enough for this side. And then what we'll do is once that's cured, I think it takes 24 or 48 hours to cure, it'll kick off and all that fumes and everything will come off, and then we'll turn it over and we may lay another layer on the backside. And then at that time, when that's cured, hopefully looking forward to putting some fabric on here. And yes, I will use some sort of better adhesive than just that standard old 3M spray you put on there. I'll try to get some commercial strength stuff, or maybe I'll even take this in and have them coat it with some Alcantara or whatever that Seville gray, I think, is the color of the headliner. And then those little quarter panel things back there for your courtesy lights in the back. And luckily our package shelf isn't in bad shape, so we'll just leave that one alone. But give us a lot of options on what this coat this with. Maybe we'll do a cowhide or something. I don't know. Anyway, stand by. Let me get you set up on the tripod. I'll start mixing up all the epoxy, and then I'll show you. We're laying our layers of matting on here and see if we can't resurrect this thing. All right, folks, got you set up on the tripod here. I've got on the mask, so I'm gonna talk a little bit loud. I've got my garage door open, and as you all know, I live next to the Indy 500 here in Roseville, California. So bear with all the helicopters, airplanes, and the screaming lunatics going down to hit the speed bump. I haven't mixed the epoxy yet, so stand by. We're going to do that right now on camera, and then I'll show you. We're going to coat the headliner itself, and then I'll lay that first layer of mat, okay? Let's get into it. We'll take our resin and we'll fill up our 1 quart mixing. The reason I'm going to fill this all the way up to the line to where it's a full quart, I want to make sure we have enough time to do 2 coats, and obviously I've got a full gallon here, so I don't need to worry about. Actually, I'm going to set this over on the floor. And there goes our first Chinook of the day. Looks like that's a what is that? Oh, that's a Cal Fire helicopter. All right, let's see here. Here is our hardener. So what I've got is a little 5mm syringe here, a little plastic syringe. And we need basically 15 milliliters. So I'll fill it up right to the 5. There's 1. There's 2. So there's 10. And then we need 5 more. Right to the 5. There we go. All right, shake that out. Make sure we seal up our hardener. You want to be careful with this hardener. It's got a little bit worse fumes than the resin does. I'm going to take my old stir stick, and I'm going to go kind of in a figure 8 pattern and up and down. I want to get all that hardener mixed in. Just like this. Get it all, because we put the hardener on the top. Don't worry if there's bubbles in here. My recollection that those will just kind of evaporate and pop as the temperature. Oh, one thing I need to mention. Make sure you read the directions on your epoxy, because not all mixing ratios are the same. As well as if you're using polyester resin, make sure you're using the correct fiberglass mat. All right. The other thing is you don't need to mix this much. You can do a little area at a time and then go back and recoat it. That's okay. Some instructions will tell you to sand in between. But I want to mix this really good, about a good minute here. And make sure that is, now you can use a spin stirrer if you would like. I like to do it the old-fashioned way with the stick. Just like that. And you see that's just kind of, it's thinned a little bit, but not much. It's amazing that that turns into a layer of basically plastic. So we'll go ahead and scrape that off. I'll let that drip off on the floor. And as you notice, I got one of those just cheapo, you know, what is that, 5 mil or maybe 2 mil plastic drop cloths. All right, so all I'm doing here is putting a real light layer on here because we want that fiberglass mat to adhere. So I'm going to load up my brush, and I'm going to start here in the middle and just kind of back and forth. And I could dump this on if I wanted to, but I'm going to get a nice even coat on here, just like that. And we're not trying to soak it into the fiberboard here, just trying to get it nice and kind of sticky, because the next way we're going to use our brush is going to be a little bit different. All right, just like this. Load up the brush. Don't worry about your drips on the side. We'll get those in a minute. All right, and then on the edge, I'm going to pull up like this. And I've graduated to suspenders with shorts today. So, let's see what we got here. All right. You can start to smell the fumes, and you'll know the smell of fiberglass resin. I'm going to go ahead and pour just a little bit here. Speed up the process just a little bit. There we go. And I'll smooth it down like this. One of the good things is I'm going to work it into this crack of our headliner board, and that may help to stiffen it up just a little bit. Woo! Make sure you're working in a well-ventilated garage. Believe me, this stuff is fun. All right, pull that down. Anywhere it's flat, you can just, you know, kind of paint it on like this. But where it's where it goes up on the edge, you want to pull up. And I'm not a professional. I'm just telling you what I've done over time and how we used to do this. And started out model airplanes, worked up to real airplanes, and now working on cars. And I'll tell you what, there is a firm relationship between automotive and aircraft. And if you can work on a car, you're basically working on an airplane. A little bit more to it, a little bit more involved, yes. All right, here we go. Nice and coated. Remember, this is just resin. It's not. Get it around our holes here, and we'll come back and we'll cut out the holes later on. Right now, it's just getting the epoxy and the mat on. One thing I forgot to mention is I did remove all the dirt and the grime, and I sanded this a little bit, and I took my blower and removed. All right, that looks about good. Let me get right over there. I've still got, and this is a very thin coat. Just enough to help us get our fiberglass mat laid down. So, got my pre-cut fiberglass mat. I'm gonna take it, lay it up down here, and get right over here, and then we'll work our resin in. I'm gonna get this off of this corner. I've got it hanging off of the edges about 2 to 3 inches, roughly. Get that about right there. And that's just so we have a little bit of over. I know it's using a little excess here, but there we go. Nice and lined up. And the reason for that is once I put this on, I want to make sure I have enough to go over the sides on the edges along here and over there. All right. So let's get this down in there. Now the fun part. Here we go. On this, I'm going to use it just like this. See how much I'm using? Not quite the full quart, because it is going to soak up our resin. All right. And we'll get it just like this. We'll need to mix up quite a bit more, obviously. I like this mat because the resin goes through it a lot easier. And I'm pulling and kind of pushing down very gently. I don't want to pull the fibers out. But this works a little bit better than those brushes. And I'm going to work right here in this center area. And we'll come back and we'll mix some more. So don't hurry yourself up. This stuff will cure over a day. And the more you get it out of the bottom of your container before it really starts flashing off, the better you're going to be. I think what we're going to do is we'll probably just use this one layer for now, even though I've pre-cut another. This is, I forgot the thickness of this fiberglass mat. I think it was 1.7, 0.17. But, all right, let's make up a little bit more. See, I've got that nice and smooth. A little bit more, and you will need probably almost a gallon to do a headliner. Maybe not quite that much. There's one. There's two. And there's 3. So 5 mils each time, 5 cc's. Got 15 cc's, or whatever that is in ounces. Get my stir stick and we're gonna go stirring. Up and down figure 8 pattern, around and round. Try to work that hardener from the top to the bottom. And it's only been a couple of minutes, so this isn't going to set up yet. At least the resin I'm using. Real easy to use stuff here. Some of the resins, they'll come with 1-to-1 mixture of hardener. Some of them will come with a very small amount of hardener. And what that means is that's the speed of the curing. So more hardener typically will cure just a little bit faster. we've got that mixed up real nice and good. So let's start over here. Notice how I'm mixing again, or not mixing, but pouring again over and then pulling up. Okay, just like this. Now on your edges, you want to make sure that your epoxy mat is laid down. And remember what I said, we're going to come back and do those edges later. Okay? We're just going to get this main center part here. And what'll start to happen is you'll start feeling kind of a gel. It'll start feeling kind of like a jello when it gets hard, or when it starts setting on you. So that's your indication to stop. But don't worry about it, because we're going to come right back, and this stuff is, you know, basically liquid plastic we're making here. Be careful pulling on the edges. You don't want to get your fibers out too much. And then we'll come over here. Now remember, I got a couple of holes here, so I don't want to pour too much there, because it's just going to drip right through to my drop cloth and my foil. But I also have those little sun visor things here. Let's see, that should be good enough right there. Take this and just pull it right across. Now, you can go like this and kind of dab it in there if you'd like. I tend to like these longer brushes that hold a lot more epoxy in the bristles, because, well, two reasons. It kind of helps you maneuver the epoxy resin around. Let's see how we gotta hold this up here. I'm gonna watch these edges, because I definitely want to have some good adhesion on those sun visor areas right there. So I might use this as kind of a thing to hold it up. There we go. Don't get freaked out if it starts coming away from the edges. That's okay. It's okay. And anywhere you see it start to kind of gel up, just pull your brush across it, just like this. And you'll start seeing it just kind of leveling itself out. And I'm going to hold my brush here, kind of push it down into the sun visor area, and back and forth like this. That's the part everybody sees, so be careful there. All right. Don't worry if you get a little bit where it's kind of hard on your mat, because whenever you put your epoxy resin back on the next layer, or the next coat, that'll firm up just right. Now, anywhere there's a curve, you want to drag your brush lengthwise, just like that. And I think we should be good for this coat. Let me pull this a little bit. Stand back and look at your work. I'm going for smoothness, because I'm using kind of this finishing layer of mat. The woven mat is typically for your base layer, or you can use this stuff as your base layer and then woven mat. It depends on how stiff you want to make everything. We're just trying to firm this up just a little bit more than it was. And fix our little crack right there in the middle. There we go. This will do real nice. This will do real nice. Yeah. This is turning out great. You're going to see a finished product. Oh, I'm using the weight of the brush and my two fingers and then kind of my ring finger to just kind of gently put some pressure on my brush. The weight of the brush will move your resin around, okay? Now once we get that all done, take a look and see if you see any areas that are kind of bubbled up or warped or anything like that. At this time, you probably want to take your metal roller and go across it. I don't think we're going to need one. I think this is going to adhere just right. And we're definitely going to come back with another coating of that epoxy right there in that crack. And then over here, I'm going to make sure that I get all of that resin out of the kind of the areas where it tends to pool. Just like this. Just like this. Because we want to come back with light coats. That's going to be an issue there, so I'll clean that off. There we go. I think that's going to be good. What I could do, you know what, I've got a little bit more resin here. Let me see if I can. Which side should we finish? Let's finish the front. How about that? I'm going to need to get some scissors, cut the corners. One thing I forgot to mention, make sure you have some kitchen shears or some sort of scissors that are specifically for your garage setup. I'm going to cut this right here, right to the corner. That'll lay that down, and then we'll lay this down. Kind of like you're wrapping a present. All right? So, we will. Where's my edge? Where's my corner? Make sure you get your corner. All right. So let's move this out of the way. Hopefully that hasn't gelled up in my cup. It might have by now. If it has, we won't do it, but, oh no, we got plenty. All right. Put this right in there. We're going to dab this in because what we want to do is create a bent. We want to be able to bend our side over. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this right on, right there. You see how that kind of folded over on itself? And come over here on this, right on the edge, kind of. And it'll fold over. It's probably one of the hardest parts in the whole process is getting the edges folded over right, like this. There we go, that filled. All right, I'm going to use, pull this just a little bit, get it nice and smooth. There we go. Right in our sunbars area, then here I'm going to push it down into the recesses, like this. Then I'm going to pull it kind of around like that. Okay? Same thing here. Now remember, we put that first coat on to help this epoxy kind of mold to it. And now what I'm going to do, very gently put some right there. That should be well enough. Maybe one more little drab right up here in the front. Yeah, probably need a little bit more right here. Because we definitely want to make sure that our mirrors and our lights and everything line up good. There we go. Don't worry about flipping it off the side. That's why we got our drop cloth there. And that's why we got the foil under there to keep piece from sticking to our table. Oh yeah, this is turning out real nice. And of course there's a gust of breeze that's going to lift everything up. That's okay, that's okay. You're just going gently, gently, gently. See, just a little bit. I like this fiber mat like this because it's a lot more flexible and a lot easier to use around corners. Get that mat that is woven fabric. You're going to have a hard time getting it off of the, or being able to bend it around the sides. This is more for intricate stuff. So like if you're using it on an airplane cowl, you know, nacelle or something like that, you know, the parts that go around an engine. Nice and smooth. See how I'm smoothing this out? I don't want any big gummed up stuff. You guys remember back in the 70s when people were working on, or 80s I guess, when people were working on boats and stuff and they were using fiberglass, and you go over to their house and you'd laugh because there was just this clumps of epoxy and fabric everywhere. I like a nice, smooth, gentle transition. Just like this. And that's going to reduce the requirement to come back and sand the damn thing 20 or 30 times. How's that setting up, guys? What do y'all think? Good? I think we're real good. I think we are very good. I'm going to pull that just a little bit there. Get that nice and gentle. Nice and gentle. You got to be careful to make sure that you're smooth here and to make sure that you realize that you may have to come back and do a little bit of sanding before you put your headliner fabric on, because the headliner fabric is a straight color, and it'll show bends and pop and, you know, bubbles and stuff like that. So that's the hardest part actually of this whole process is getting the fabric laid. But if you use the kind that has the foam backing and stuff like that, then you might be a little better off. Get this right around like that. Notice I'm not using any clamps. And that's going to be good for now because I think we're starting to set up. And I'll do a little bit more here on the edge, but yeah, this is probably good right here. And then we'll let this cure for the whatever it calls for, 24, 48 hours, and we'll come back and finish it out on another video. And hey, if I can do this, you can do it. Old guy here working in his garage. Get that right down on there. There we go. There we go. All right. Remember, everything you're watching right here is a novice. I'm not a professional architect. I'm not a fiberglass person, designer, architect, or what have you. I am just a average guy out here in the garage using what you can buy on the internet or on the Amazon or eBay, whatever you want to get, your local paint store or what have you. Make sure we got that down in there. That's going to be tough on the edge here because you've got like a little corner where the sun visor sits. And tap this down in there a little bit right here on the edge because we got it a little bit wet. All right, that should be good. Over there looks okay. We'll be able to fill that in, no problem. It looks like she's going to be setting up. I'm not going to put the other layer on. And I am going to go ahead and discard this, and we'll get my acetone and let my brush soak. And we'll come back in another video we'll finish it out. I can already feel we've got a little bit of support there. So I'll get my stuff out of the way. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to use my little, I think that hardener kind of melted my rubber thing in my syringe there. I've got everything all sealed up. I've got this all laid out. I'm going to close the garage door just a little bit. I'm going to get my fan, open the door, and let it kind of, you know, kick off, because I don't want to be out here while this stuff is going. And one of the other things, if you have a gas either heater or hot water maker, make sure you turn the pilot light off, or have sufficient ventilation coming through. And then if you're using those incandescent shop lights or something like that, be very careful. This stuff does get off a lot of vapor. It's not as flammable as gasoline or anything, but it's enough to melt faces if something does flash. All right. Okay. With that, give me a thumbs up if you like it, and we'll come back and finish this up in another day or so, and then we'll come back with the fabric. Voila, you can do it, I can do it, you can do it. Take care.